What is remote graphic, what it is, and how does it work? Let's talk. We define remote graphic by the way of two PC connected with each other and sharing the whole screen of the graphical user interface, just like here. Remote graphic is designed at its core to support professional graphic application and therefore is compatible with 2D images, but most importantly 3D applications. Like Microsoft DirectX and open source OpenGL APIs, Remote Graphic will make sure the local PC will get the same user experience as the remote PC without any compromise. Remote Graphic is gaining momentum with easy access of technology and low price of networks. Remote Graphic main purpose is to allow best-in-class visual experience with very fluid image refresh or high frame rate, as opposed to other protocols that mimic the remote PC display. Remote Graphic main purpose is to be as accurate and faithful to the original as possible. The history of Remote Graphic started with Remote Desktop. Back in 1993, running on Microsoft NT 4.0, it was called Terminal Services, and it's still in use today. All Microsoft operating systems come with remote desktop functionality built in. For example, Windows come with Remote Desktop Protocol, or what we also call RDP. What is the difference between Remote Desktop and Remote Graphic? Well, Microsoft RDP is a client-server protocol technology with its pros and cons. Here's how RDP works. There is an RDP server, or service if you prefer, on the remote PC, and a client version running on the local PC. The RDP server is sending a set of commands that the client will then convert back as a visual representation or interpretation. Although it has been greatly improved over the years, RDP cannot really provide a sustained image refresh rate, nor can it supply the image accuracy that today's modern application requires. The main advantage of RDP is its widespread install base. It can run on almost any OS, any devices, and any network. If the only thing you need to do is to check your PC once in a while, well, RDP is a very good option. If you need best-in-class graphic experience, Remote Graphic is really what you need. Let's agree on what Remote Graphic is not. There are many protocols that allow some kind of PC-to-PC desktop sharing connectivity. Although that most of them are a replica of RDP with some added benefit like centralized console and management, most of them don't qualify as Remote Graphic. Remote Graphic is not Skype, neither it's not FaceTime. Although both of them offer amazing functionalities, they are not designed for professional 3D application. Of course, Remote Graphic is not the cloud. Cloud is now used in any conversation for everything that's moving. It is not virtualization, or also known as VDI or virtual desktop infrastructure. There is a misconception that virtualization implies some use of Remote Graphic. Let's say that some virtualization environment may require Remote Graphic, but it's not the main usage of virtualization today. We will come back to Remote Graphic in virtualized environment in a later presentation. Let's look at what Remote Graphic is. So here we have an example. Nancy is working at her desk at the office. She's using a workstation. She's using a professional 3D application on a high-end hardware with dedicated graphic card. Now she would like to go home and potentially later would like to finalize and tweaks some of her drawing before tomorrow's big client meeting. Once at home, she logs on to her workstation at the office via Remote Graphic Protocol using her credentials. Using a standard home laptop, she now connects remotely to her office. The remote graphic protocol will automatically authorize her using her credential. All the graphic and sound will be routed to her via a standard TCP/IP connection, meaning what we're using today, either Ethernet or Wi-Fi. Note that there are no server involved besides optional Active Directory for password management, but this is not mandatory, it's for large enterprise. This is why we call remote graphic a point-to-point protocol. So we have PC to PC connectivity, nothing in between. Nancy gets full performance and power of a high-end workstation at home. Furthermore, no sensitive corporate data was transferred to our house. Only the pixel of the workstation screen was sent over, offering the best option for security of data. There is also an option for Nancy to view more than one workstation at once. If there is another workstation available at the office, especially after hours, she can take control of that other workstation to perform other tasks. This is called many to one. Let's assume she have a second display. It's not mandatory, but it's more convenient. The same process as before is done. She makes connection to the second workstation with defined credentials. The second workstation will show up in her second display, allowing her to interact with two high-end workstations, giving her twice the performance and twice the productivity. Another scenario that remote graphic offers is that one user can share its screen with another user. This is called collaboration. One of the main differences between RDP and remote graphic is that we usually define the remote PC as the sender and the local PC as the receiver. This is because most of the data is being sent from the remote workstation to the local PC. We can see an analogy here between remote graphic and YouTube. Imagine the remote workstation act like a YouTube server. But let's stop the analogy here, as there are many key differences with remote graphic and a YouTube server. But I guess you get the idea. So just as Nancy did before, the same concept applies here, except that both users will see the display. John wants to connect to Nancy's computer, but Nancy have to agree for obvious security reasons. Once Nancy approved the connection, then her main display is being captured and sent to John to view. At this point, Nancy can grant control of the keyboard and mouse to John. This way, both users have full control over Nancy's workstation at the same time. Nancy can of course reject control of her workstation and disconnect John completely whenever she wants. Some more advanced remote graphic protocol will allow more than two PC connecting. This is a multi-user, also called a one-to-many. This way, other collaborators can have the same graphic-rich experience with or without the mouse and keyboard control. In summary, remote graphic allow for the best frame per second, also referred as FPS, maximum image quality from high definition and even beyond, even to 4K resolution. It is important to note that a good remote graphic protocol will allow any application, and it's independent from the operating system and do not require special driver or complex tuning. Last but not least, remote graphic allow a remote user like an independent contractor to interact with the sensitive corporate data without the need to access the data itself, just the pixel that represent the data. That is one of the best features of remote graphic. Remote graphic can also be used in different usage like centralized server, virtualization, and mobility. More on that later. Last but not least, here's a sample of different remote graphic protocol available today. Rdp PC over IP, HP Remote Graphic Software, or also known as RGS, as well as Splashed Up. Thank you very much.